my channel. Today I have two special guests, and we're gonna have a really good chat for you. So this is Mr. Willie Williams, and this is Miss Jazz. Okay, can y'all tell the people a little bit about yourselves, what you do, before we get into today's topic?
My name is Jasmine. I'm a mom of a 2-year-old baby boy. I'm also a high school educator on the west side of Chicago. I am a business owner. I run a mental health organization called the Trauma Zone. And I am a PhD student, 1 year away from being Dr. Jane. Period. And yeah, I'm just a cool person, you know.
That's nice. I'm Willie Williams. I paint and play the guitar, and I don't do nothing else important. No, just kidding. I'm on a similar track to where I'm finishing my PhD in December. I currently run an educational consulting company to where at the beginning of this year I left my teaching job to go and service more students. So that's going pretty well too. So
yes, look, they finna have me degreed out, okay? Like, my little master's is over here like, okay, doctorates, all right. Look, I love to see it. So the beauty in these two individuals and why I brought them together today is because they are both uniquely divorced and they are millennials, right? So we don't typically talk about what it's like to kind of get married earlier on in your 20s and then transitioning out of that. Like, I feel like we more so see those conversations around like white people, but we don't see too many like young black folks talking about like how they got married and how they ended up, you know, divorcing in some way, shape, form, or fashion. I've already, you know, let them know that they can share as much as they're open to sharing. I ain't gonna get too deep into their business, but more so just giving the space for this conversation to occur, for people to kind of get some insight onto what that looks like. And then also talking about the beauty in moving forward and still like having the opportunity in being young and being able to still like jumpstart the next chapter of your life. And you know, potentially get stepdaddies or get you another wife, you know, the beauty in that. So, all right. So my first question is, how old were each of you all when you got married?
I was 24. Yeah, I just turned 24.
yeah, I was 25. So yeah,
Babies.
Okay. So how long were you guys in the relationships before you got married?
So I knew my ex-husband 2 years before we started dating. We probably dated for like 8.5 months before we got married.
okay, nice. Yeah, I was in a relationship for 2 years, and then 2 years, then got engaged for 1.5 years, and then got married. So.
Okay, so not too long of a time, like, especially even like knowing somebody for 2 years and then deciding to, you know, after 8 months get married or whatever. And then in your case, like being together for 2 years, what do you feel like solidified it for you? Because, you know, you hear people talk about a lot how like it take a long time to get to know somebody. If somebody want to be dating you for 5-10 years, that's okay. Like, that's how long it takes to get to really know people. So like, what's your perspectives on the timeline in which you felt comfortable saying, okay, I'm ready to commit to this person for the rest of my life?
Yes, I think we actually worked together. This was like my first school that I taught at straight out of undergrad, and he was the head of the deans there. And we just were really good friends. Like, he used to help me set up my classroom over the summer. And we just had a really cool friendship. And then probably like going into that 3rd year of us working there, he was just like, you know, we should start dating. And we had already like had that basis of a friendship, which was something I had never had in my prior relationships. I don't think I ever was their friend first. Mm-hmm. It was like, you cute, we hang out, boom, we're together. But with him, it was like, okay, I know a lot about you. I see you on a consistent basis. And then kind of what led us to being married is like I ended up pregnant. We come from like faith-based families. So that was, I want to say, the biggest like component of us leading into a marriage. I mean, obviously we loved each other and had seen a future with each other before that, but I feel like the timeline was more so y'all need to be married before your child enters into the world. Because if you know anything about the black church, honey, you're not just popping out kids now. You gotta,
what's the plan?
Locate that, like, what's going on? Is it the wedding the day after the child is born? Is it before? So we ended up getting married, and then maybe like 4 months later, my son was born. So I was full on 3rd trimester at a wedding, hot, sweating. the whole shebang.
Your life changed in like 6
Yes.
months.
And then I'm like, boom, now I'm a mom. So,
Yeah.
If you didn't get pregnant, do you think you guys would have waited?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. I don't think we would have gotten married at all. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that tea.
Okay. For me, one of the biggest things. What was the question? I want to make sure I got it right.
So we were talking about. Look, do I remember? The
I think it was like the timing. Like,
what made you feel like after those 2 years you were ready, or like did you ever have a timeline in your head?
I did. I mean, my parents have been married for the last 40-something years.
Mm-hmm.
So my sisters are both unmarried. They both very happy. But when that responsibility kind of dripped down to me as like the youngest one, it was kind of like, oh, okay, if you're getting into a relationship, you know that within 2 years, you got to know if you like her or not. If not, then if you're ready and you think you want more, then go get more. So I was really in a space to where I was really trying to follow a lot of different prototypes of what I thought was of a marriage. So, I'm with you for 2 years. Now we need to be engaged because, that's how a guy shows that they care. That's
the intentionality that most women look for. It's like you're not just kind of playing with my time.
Yeah. So I was kind of on that to where and we were moving very fast to where it was like, all right, we kicking it, and then boom, she's getting her own space. Then boom, she's moving into my space. Then boom, we getting engaged. Then boom, we getting married. So we was moving like this with everything. So yeah.
Was there ever moments where you second guessed the pace? Like, man, this does feel like it's moving a little fast.
Love can kind of be a roller coaster, and you really can't pace that sometimes. So to me, it was like, man, we moving.
You just doing what felt right.
Yeah. Do I slow things down? Do I say hold on, or do I just continue with the pace to where things are moving? So I was more in that thought. I was more in the dream thought of like, oh well. Shoot, by the time I'm 45, I want to be able to say I've been married for 25 years and all this and all that, like my parents were. Mm-hmm. So,
Yeah, and I think for us, it's like with a child getting ready to be born into that relationship, it was really like our timeline is short. Mm-hmm. Like eventually this child is going to be here, and I'm a child of divorce. Like my parents got divorced when I was very young, and then his parents were never married. So we kind of had envisioned something different for our son. And we knew that when he was born, like we wanted to have the same last name. We wanted to have merged our houses because we didn't live together until literally the week before we got married. And that's just a whole nother like reflective piece. But it was also like, you don't shack up. Yeah. Even though we had a child before we got married, it was like, don't add some more sin. Don't
you was trying to like,
don't go in there move together. So I literally was like 6 months pregnant, moving my house. I was there. We got married that next week, and then it was like, now we have to prep for a child. We got to do a nursery. We got to do all these things. So our timeline wasn't. I think we kind of got caught up in the rapture of like a physical deadline of a human being born, and not really saying like what makes most sense for us in this regard.
That's real.
Spooning just a little bit. So how long were you guys married before the divorce? Or before, let's just say before the talk around divorce showed up.
I was married for 13 months. So a year and a month. So.
Yeah, I was married for 11 months, but I feel like we started talking about divorce like way in the beginning. I think we were married for like 6 months, and then COVID happened, and it was just like, no ma'am. COVID and being a newlywed was it was a lot.
Yeah. Because now you just went from like not living with this person to like
seeing them all the time. And because we both worked in a school environment, it's like we are working from home with the newborns, trying to function as newlyweds. Like everything, we were just in each other's face all day. So everything you don't like about somebody, them putting the tissue on. Them not being able to like make the meal the way you want to. It's just like you're so frustrated because you are forced to be in a home, and then we're trying to like navigate bringing our child outside to go to doctor's appointments and not knowing what that's going to look like. Everybody has on masks. We're not able to see our families. So I think that just kind of amplified what was going on. Mm-hmm. And then like he had a whole bunch of stuff going on personally that I wasn't aware of. So that just like kind of added to it. So we had talked about divorce. I just woke up one day and I was like, I just don't think like this is it. Like I think our intentions were pure when we got here. But I think like there has to be like real deep love for someone to be married, and I just don't feel like we love each other deeply on a romantic level. I think he respected me as a mother and I respected him as a father, but I think like that's literally where it kept at. We didn't really like understand each other as people, so we had talked about it. You know, we kind of went back and forth for a few months, and then we got to like month 10. We tried to do like counseling and marital counseling with our past and things like that, and it was just like oil and water. Like, regardless of the advice we were getting, all the strategies we were getting, we tried to apply them, and it wasn't that like we didn't know how to apply them. It's just we were not meant to be. So we just were like, you know, let's cut our losses, and you know, our child is still small.
Yeah,
we should shift our focus to really learn how to be healthy co-parents. And our divorce, I mean, getting divorced during COVID was easy as well. Like, it was virtual. It was super to the point. So, like, it was a blessing and a curse to be married and divorced in COVID-19.
Okay. So, do you feel like, because I know we mentioned, like, COVID playing a factor, do you feel like the whole idea of having a newborn, because people often say, like, the baby comes and things start to shift.
I'm just thinking about, like, the changes in your life in, like, 6 months. Like, baby, marriage.
If I get married again, I do not think I will have a child. Like, I do not want to be pregnant and getting married. I don't want to be married and getting pregnant in a year. Like, I really want to have, like, that newlywed phase. Because I think there is, like, a time and place for children. I love my child. Everybody know, like, my son is literally my whole life. But I don't think that doing multiple, like, life changes back to back to back is healthy for anybody. You are just so, like, it's easy to focus on getting married, and this is our focus. Like, we're focused on, like, process, you know, getting gifts, unpacking, setting up the house, you know, spending intimate time with others, still going on dates, still dating. But then to have to, like, pull up with a baby carrier, and then, you know, sometimes not having to be able to do dates because we're, like, concerned about our infant being born in COVID, and, like, we don't want people watching him, and just, I feel like we had a lot of life stressors that was going on. And it was our first time living together as well. So, like, people who had lived together prior, like, they kind of knew how each other functioned in a living environment. That was our first time living together. So it's like, why do you do that? Like, why do you do your dishes like that? Like, that was, like, a big thing in our house. Like, I've never seen nobody do their dishes like that in my life. That is giving me anxiety. Like, is stuff even clean? Like, so, like, everything was so amplified because we were, like, so spread thin trying to do multiple things. And we love our son, but it was a lot. And we were young. Like, being young parents, too.
Yeah.
It was just a lot. A little hodgepodge.
And people may look at, like, mid-20s and be like, oh, that's not young. Like, that's still fairly young. Like, you're just getting in your own groove, fresh out of college, trying to build your own life. And then boom, you throw a child in there. Yeah. Now, did you guys ever try counseling, marital counseling, before you made the full?
Yeah. But I think, I mean, we were very young as well. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I'm going to say this, you know, before we even go too far, that I completely respect her. It takes a lot to kind of be with me. So the fact that she was with me for that amount of time, she always going to have my respect. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm never going to talk bad about her or anything like that, because you had to trap it out with me too. Yeah. So, you know, I own my part of that decision as well. It's not like, oh man, well, I just got married and this person was just wild and crazy. Nah. Some of the things that I knew, you know, people always say, well, you know, if you knew this before, why'd you still choose to get married? I thought that was the next step to take, you know. So I do kind of want to preface with that, but we went to, like, premarital counseling. We went to marriage counseling. We had conversations with family members. We had conversations with her parents, with my parents. I remember my dad. We were at a picnic, and we had just got done arguing, and now we at the picnic trying to act like this married couple. And I'm sitting there like this because I'm over. I'm just like, and my dad is looking at me, and he's just shaking his head, and I'm looking at him back like, you don't know what I'm going through, bro. Like, you've been married, Joe, basically your entire life. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, like me, I know what I'm about to kind of go through. He takes us, oh, well, let me talk to y'all real quick. Take us, put us in his backseat, turn on some R. Kelly. Let's stay together. Man, if this don't do it, ain't nothing gonna do it. And I'm just looking like, you just don't know, bro. But, I mean, I'm going to have to make some changes because I want the next 20 years of my life to be very happy as well. I don't want to make a decision for now and be kind of stuck in that decision based off of everybody else trying to kind of convinced me of different things. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, well, you know, in marriage counseling, I had a situation where the pastor was like, oh man, you got something to learn. Your wife always gonna be right. And you need to learn that. And I'm looking like, always? Always. Okay. So I had to learn how to really disseminate what advice I got.
Yeah, because that could be an unhealthy thought to put out there.
And although I get the basis behind it, it was just
like happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, but we're not here for that though.
Right.
Like, we here to actually solve issues. So
Right.
let's actually be solution oriented instead of just like, man, you're gonna have to understand, young buck. Like, this is something that you just gonna have to know. Yes, I'm doing my best to make her happy, but at the same time, you know, what does that day look like when things are not working out like that?
Yeah.
So, I don't know where we was kind of going with that.
No, it's okay. You got it. And I think the beauty in millennials and what we've learned from the prior generations and seeing their love and their relationships is that, like, yes, you want marriage to be a lifelong commitment. You go into it believing and hoping that that's what it will be, but also being very realistic and knowing that, like, I tell my couples all the time, people grow and they change, right? Like, y'all weren't even, you know, together that long before things started to show up where you were like, oh, I don't know if I can do this for a lifetime. But like when I see couples who have like 5-10 years in the game, I'm like, who your partner was at year 1, they're not going to be that person at year 5, at year 10, at year 15. And so like the longevity of your marriage or the success of it really comes down to, are you all able to change and adapt as the other person changes and adapts? Mm-hmm. Like, can you make those concessions that are needed that give both of you all room to grow? And if you can't, or if you become misaligned at any point and you can't figure out a way to get back on track, then you just gradually continue to grow apart, you know? And I think that's also why we, especially during the pandemic, I feel like the time spent in-house with your significant other all the time, it really revealed a lot, which is why we saw, you know, people who had been together for years or for decades coming out and saying they're divorced. Like, I remember with Steph Curry's parents, like, people were like, what? And it's like, bro, when you spent that much time with somebody and you are becoming more enlightened about what you want the rest of your life to look like, you go ahead and you cut the cord. And so many people's parents stayed together for the kids, right? Like, and once them kids was gone or was almost out the house, it's like, all right,
they
like, you know,
you gotta love this person and do you is the question.
Now what's crazy is that, like, I got divorced before the pandemic. So, like, my knowledge of, like, who I am and, like, how that situation could have gone, like, is much different because I'm like, man, I can only imagine us both being stuck in that same space. And, you know, we both hit every day. It was going to be a lot. So sometimes God will try to take you out of a situation. You know, he'll let you put yourself in it, but he'll take you out because, you know, next year, this might not be the best situation
for y'all to be in.
For both of you all. You know, emotionally, mentally, physically, in every way. It was just like, let me go ahead, kind of send y'all on y'all separate paths early, and then, you know, no love lost, instead of like you continue to just go and just mess it up.
And and things get worse, you know. So at a certain point, I think it's good that, you know, you got to a place where it's like, we might need to put this on the table, because I think for so long couples, they're like, oh, you know, we don't want to bring out the D word. Like, even as a therapist, sometimes it's like, we don't need to put this D word out until we really, like, for sure that that's a path that we're considering going down. Because then it kind of just messes with the foundation of the stability of the relationship when we're bringing it out of anger or prematurely just because, you know, that there's an issue. But it needs to be deciphered on when, like, this needs to be an actual option in discussion, because things aren't just panning out, you know. And in our generation, we ain't just sticking around for the stick around. Like,
ain't no point in sticking around to be unhappy. I always tell myself, you know, I'd rather fight to make somebody else happy for the next 20 years than to be in a situation where I know I'm not making somebody else happy for 20 years. Like, ain't no point in doing that. We can both go our separate ways and be kind of happy, opposed to being miserable together.
And I think for us, like, we had an infant in the home, and seeing how he was when we were in the beginning of our marriage, like our house was very peaceful. But as we started to become oil and water, like it started to impact our child. Like for example, he started to pull chunks of his hair out.
Oh,
like that was like a big thing. Our baby was stressed down, and we really like were taking him back to the hospital. He was having infections in his scalp, like all of these things, and so we really had to sit and be like, is it worth it? Like, is it worth it for our child to be, in a stressful environment and be experiencing anxiety as literally a little guy, like a little chunky 4-month-old, a ball of joy.
And people will act like infants.
And people like them kids will be all right.
Pick up on that. No, they feel that stuff.
Yeah, like especially because he's so close to us. Like he's not in daycare. Like he is literally, we are doing colors and numbers and everything with him. He's with us consistently, and it just got to a point where we were just like, our child. Is it worth us impacting our child in the long term psychologically for us to just keep trying to like get it out the mud and stick through thick and thin? Or would we prefer he be in 2 separate healthy homes where he can go to mom's house and be healthy and dad's house and be healthy, instead of being in this environment with both of us and it just not be the case? So once things were said and done, and like, we had our period of separation leading up to our divorce, like our kid had a 360. Like he was sleeping through the night. He was super calm. He was more happy. And I think that kind of solidified, like the choice we made was the correct one. And we were just more happy. I mean, we went through the sad stages and stuff. Like I was so up, I'm not gonna lie to you. And I think me being torn up was more so feeling like a failure to people around me. Like, dang, everybody, you put your husband on social media and your kids and y'all Christmas photos and all of this. And then you got to turn around and be like, we have gotten a divorce. Like, there's no need to be asking questions about how he's doing anymore, because that's just, like, not the realm that I'm in. And very much so feeling like I failed at this versus I just had to, like, transition to something different. But our son is, like, amazing for it. Like, he's an amazing 2-year-old. So I think if we would have stayed, he definitely would have been one of them kids lashing out at school, at other students.
Yeah.
I don't think he would be sleeping through the night. Like, he just would have had a different set of problems that we then would have had to correct in such an older age versus us just like nipping it in the bud when he was little. Yeah.
So, in both of you all situation, was the divorce mutually agreed upon? Was there some resistance on one end?
There was no resistance. We literally were on the so like I said, we got divorced during COVID, so no courts were open at all. So we literally got a Zoom link. Like, we submitted all our documents electronically through a little state portal. They sent us back, like, this is the date you need to be on the Zoom. We literally were on Zoom. She was in the courtroom. We were at home. Nice. And they asked us questions, and we're like, ma'am, before you even get into all that, like, we know how we want to do custody. We know we don't, we're not, like, splitting any properties or anything like that. And I feel like that was really much sort of like God's kind of safety. Like, we were thinking about buying a home, but we were like, no, that's another big, like, decision. Maybe we should just rent. So there were a lot of choices that we made that when it came down to the divorce, like, they didn't have to split finances. We didn't have to, like, remove bank accounts from one another. It was just like, the only thing we have to worry about is how we want to do custody with our child. Everything else is like, if it belongs to him, he's taking it. If it belongs to me, I'm taking it. And so the judge was like, it's non-contested. We're like, non-contested, man. We are tired. Like, we want to wake up tomorrow and move on with our lives. Like,
y'all was still a teenager.
Yeah, he had already moved out the month before. So as we were going kind of through the process of starting to get our files and stuff together, we were just like, okay, this should be the chunk of time where you're starting to move to a different place. We had decided that I would stay at our current place just because I was the one that was going to have our son for majority of the time. Like, his daycare and stuff was around where we were living at that time. And so by the time we got to the actual divorce proceedings, like, he already had been settled into his new place. He had all his furniture and things like that. So it was just like, man, we just need you to sign the dotted line.
Yeah.
Nice.
We've had the discussions that we needed to have. And, like, at first it was very like, I'm going to cut the couch in half. Yeah, so at first it was more so, when you're getting a divorce, like, feelings are real and people start acting petty. I'm not going to lie to you. It's like, oh, how dare this happen? And so it was very much so like, I bought this spoon. I'm taking this spoon when I go. Like, but I think after he moves, he, like, started to move his things out, and we really had, like, that separation period, which was probably like June to August. Our divorce was finalized like mid-August. it was just like there need be no pettiness. Like you're in your space, you have a sense of peace that you didn't have when we were together, and I'm in our space with our son, and we have pretty much like we have a routine now. So once we got to the actual proceedings, it was just like, man, we have nothing else to talk about. Like we've dealt with everything we needed to deal with outside of this, and if there's anything else that we need to talk about as it pertains to our child, like we can do that outside of the court. So I think at first if our divorce proceedings was a little bit early on the calendar, we would have got on there with a lot of pettiness in our heart, but having that time to really like process, it was just like, this is just what's best for both of us. So we went our separate ways.
Okay. I would say that our situation was kind of like the inverse of that situation in terms of like communication. There was none. It was kind of like non-existent. And that was on my end. I chose to do necessary things to make sure I wasn't having communication because I knew myself, right? And when you married to somebody, they know how you are too. So if they want to have you back, then they know what certain buttons to push, you know what I mean, to have you back in a certain position. And for me, I had to make a real decision like, no, you know what, I'm doing something different this time. When we talked about it, I filed in 2018, September of 2018. We didn't get divorced until May of 2019.
Okay.
So, yeah, for us to have no children and no property, it'll give you kind of like a glimpse of how things were. Because it should have been like an open and shut, like 30 days or less. End up being like 6 to 9 months. So
was that because of resistance?
Yes, but it was also because I moved very quickly with my decision. However, she needed time to move with her decision. And that time was taken. But, I mean, at the same time, you know, let's see, as we actually, like, got divorced and everything like that, on the day to where like we signed the paperwork and everything like that, she had already signed the paperwork, sent it in with her lawyers. So I didn't see her at all during this process. Like I haven't seen her since 2018. So I had to kind of realize like as much as I want to rush this process, as much as I want to just go ahead and get this over with, 2 people got married, so 2 people gonna have to get divorced. So I'm gonna have to wait as long as possible. I was annoyed. All my friends, they heard the different parts of it and the different frustrations of it, and you know, because I don't think that initially that was her decision and what she wanted to do. But for me, I just had to make. Sometimes it's about making the wisest move for yourself, because sometimes you can be so in love to where you look back and you're like, man, I have completely changed as a person.
Yeah,
I need to make a good decision for myself. So, yeah.
Okay. So
I see the follow-up question.
Definitely, because I feel like there's this misconception that regular everyday people run with just based on conversations and on social media about like, it's just so much to get divorced. Be careful before you get married because it's a lot. And to me, it sounds like y'all situations as average individuals was kind of cut and dry. Like it wasn't as deep as people kind of make it out to be, or maybe even necessarily as expensive. What factors kind of influence that?
The emotional work is the hardest work that you're gonna do. So like money wise, like as she was kind of moving her stuff, okay, well, what all do you want? What all do you kind of need? Okay, well, I want this, this, and this, and this. One of these things you didn't buy, but you know what? Take it.
Okay.
You know what? Don't even worry about it. Okay, you want the money from the wedding? Go ahead and take it. Whatever you want, go ahead and take it. But the emotional work of it, that's what takes the long time. The financial part, you know, I was told like, okay, if you want to kind of be done with me, then you're going to have to divorce me. I hired a divorce lawyer. I was paying my divorce lawyer over and over and over and over. And think about it, my divorce went 30 days. It was 6 months. So I'm paying a lawyer that whole time to make sure that
he's handling things.
Yeah, that I can have my freedom and emancipation back. Now, one thing I will say about her is that she is in the lawyer profession, and she is in family law, and she had seen situations like this before, and there was conversations around like, okay, well, I'm gonna wait him out and all type of things like that. But to me, the financial part was nothing compared to like that emotional part of like losing your best friend or losing a person that's so close to you, and you know now they can't be close to you. Talking to family members, and they like, oh, well, how's this person?
Yeah.
You know, and they was at the wedding. They love to tell you, like, man, I was at the wedding. What happened? You know, and then it's just like, oh, well, you know, we just decided that things didn't work. Oh, that's great. You didn't try. You know, all those emotional things. That's what takes the longest time. So people can't even move until they pass certain parts of like the emotional work.
And I think for us, you know, it was COVID. Like, I mean, first of all, our divorce was considered an annulment because it was
so
before
short.
12 months of us being married. Like, if we would have got to month 13, it's a legal divorce. Which to me is nuts. I think annulment should be at least up to 2 years. Like, you should have 2 years to really annul.
Yeah.
So, like, our biggest financial burden was just paying for the documents. And we didn't have to, like, pay anybody. We paid for, like, a portal service. Nice. Each of the forms had, like, a price. It was like, okay, we had to pay for, like, the custody form. Once we paid, they sent us, like, the blank form to complete it. We had to pay for, like, you know, like, I think our most expensive portion of our divorce is, like, the actual custody, like, documents. Once we sent them in, I think it was like $4 to process. And when it was like, they emailed us back, like, we received all your documents, we're moving forward. And like, we were on Zoom. So, you know, like, it was $0, like, download it on your computer. He downloaded it on his computer and we were pretty much set to go. As far as finances, like, I also think because we were so young, we did not have the financial history that older couples being divorced have. Like, y'all literally have homes, cars, kids, savings funds, you know, different things like that. We all really have to sit down and think about, like, where's the money going? We were both like, young folks, had just got into our professional, you know, realms. We had a newborn, like, literally everything he ever needed. It was still from his baby shower. So diapers, wipes, all of that stuff was like stockpile, ready to go. So, and it's not like we were paying for school or anything like that. So it literally was like, do you have enough money to leave? You know, I think when you're getting ready to get a divorce, you know, before the other person even speaks those words. So, like, the conversations that I was having with, like, the father figures that I have in my life, because my dad passed when I was in high school. So, like, his best friends are, like, my fathers. Walk me down the aisle, all that good stuff. They were like, you know, you need to start saving your money so that if something happens, you are ready to do what's best for you and your child. And I know that they were having those same conversations with him, because regardless of what is going on with y'all, like, we see her as a daughter and we see you as a son, as her husband. So you also need to do the same. Start saving up your money. So when it was time for him to go, like, financially, he was set. He had his money. He was able to put his money down for his new place. Like, you know, anything we needed. I mean, we did take a halt on thinking about, like, financially how we were going to support our son. But it was like he was ready to go and I was ready to go. And so I think we had done so much emotional labor already, like counseling. Marital counseling is so much emotional labor because it forces you to not point the finger. It forces you to reflect on what you have done. And I think we have both gotten to the point where it's like, I know what I did incorrectly. You know what you did incorrectly. And so we are, like, past the emotional point right now. Our divorce toward the end was just like, what is more logical? Like, who works the most versus who is able to pick up and drop off the baby from school? Like, who does this, who does that? And we were able to kind of move those pieces in a more logical realm, because I think emotionally we have both kind of closed that door. And then, of course, after the divorce is like, actually the ink has dried, then all those feelings just swell up. And so really having to challenge yourself to be like, don't pick up that phone and be like, and we in this predicament because of you, and we got a divorce because of you. So we really had to just be like, we're going to give each other some space. You know, I will keep you updated on what's going on with our baby. You know, when you come get him, like, there's no biggie. But outside of that, we had to really, like, force ourselves not to communicate
in place,
because it was just going to be emotional, like a volcano. Like, it just was all going to bubble up. And once that stage passed, we were like, set to go.
Yeah. And that kind of leads into my next question as far as, like, how do you guys feel like your divorces really affected your mental health?
I was told that.
Divorce is the hardest thing that I have ever been through. And I've been through some shit. But divorce, that's a different, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Because, like, Kanye West wrote a piece the other day about divorce. He was just comparing, you know, different things to, like, divorce. Like, divorce feels like, you know, your partner just stumping you out in the middle of the street. Like, everybody that's been divorced is like, hell yeah. It feels like all that. Because it feels like, hey, you made a commitment, right? and you made a commitment in front of your family and friends. So you gotta kind of remember that because everybody was there for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think
you don't let these people party and drink and take home favors and
the looming embarrassment I feel like that shows up from having to
Man, it'll make you want to hide your face.
Yeah.
And then you also have to consider like the internal part of that too. Is like you now are going through a grieving process of losing somebody who did not die.
And what if I see this person at Mariano's? Like,
you
is we gonna have to square up? Like,
there's
what
all
is
type
it?
of
Like,
thoughts to it. It's like, man, if your brain will do something crazy because it'll be like it'll prepare you just in case you run into your biggest nightmare, which is your partner, you know, or which is your ex-partner, because that's the hardest shit that you're seeing right now. Everything else while you're going through your divorce, it might seem a lot easier, but new relationships might seem a lot harder. Trusting people might seem a lot harder. Trusting yourself even might seem a lot harder. So yeah.
And I think as a Black woman, you know, I'm gonna slide this little gem. I just think we're taught that like everybody's like deficits is our fault. And so being a Black woman who my whole life I've learned that I have to do 20 times as more to get to where I want to be. Like that is kind of like that perfectionist mindset that I've had. I mean, I still have it now. I'm letting it go more so now because as a mother, like I don't want my child to have that type of anxiety. Like I let him be free. He want to eat dirt. Like he can eat dirt. Like, and we'll watch his mouth out, keep moving. But I think growing up, like once seeing my parents get a divorce and seeing like the ways in which my father was able to move freely and my mother, it was like, oh, and what you do wrong. You got 3 kids now. And you know, these very like lopsided, different type of perceptions of like gender roles when it comes to a divorce. And then to couple that with now I'm a single parent. And, you know, seeing like how my mom, you know, after the divorce was a single mom to 3 children, like that is just something that in my mind walking into my marriage, I was like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I ain't going to be no single mom. Like, I'm not going to get a divorce. Like, I had all of these ideas in my mind. And when you feel like you've given something your best foot forward, it's hard to be like, actually, my best foot wasn't enough. Like, either I could have done more, like I wasn't doing enough reflection, or just this person wasn't for me. I think the biggest part for me was just like realizing like it's okay. Like other people's perceptions of you and like that has nothing to do with you, because I think I was, you know, worried about like, well, mom, like, are you ashamed of me? You know, like, because you got a divorce and I didn't want you to have to like walk this journey with me, you know, and, you know, really having to like learn how to navigate as a, you know, as a mom without a partner, like all of these different things that I just like, all of these nevers, I actually like became those things. And so it was very hard for me to be like, and so what? Like, there are moms out here who have their children most of the time who are rocking it out, opening businesses, doing things like that. So I really had to shift my mindset to not letting like other people's perceptions make me feel bad. Because like the situation is what it is. Like I can't make someone want to be married to me, and like the divorce was initiated on his behalf. So like I'm not gonna grovel. Like I'm gonna take my last piece of dignity and I'm gonna sign these papers. Like I'm not gonna beg. And I had to like really learn how to regain my power. Like yes, me and my son, but my son is intelligent, he's well taken care of, he has the best opportunities in life. Like I'm doing the things that I need to do, and yes, I am a divorcee, and yes, I am a mom full time. But I'm still all of these amazing pieces. And so, you know, and older people just crying my tears. They're like, I was married for 70 years. Yeah, and your husband was cheating for 50. Like, girl, he was knocking you out for 30. Like, he was addicted to drugs for 20. And I feel like their favorite line is, y'all said for better or for worse, God hates divorce. And so I really had to like, God also wants us to be happy. Like he gives us free will. He gives us free will. He wants us to live a life more abundantly.
And he tells us when seasons are over.
This was not the abundant life that I know my Lord and Savior had for me. And what may have worked for y'all, y'all were functioning in a time where women did not have certain types of autonomy and things like that. And you were just supposed to go with the norm. Like that is not...
we don't gotta do that no more.
And once I got the green light that my mom was like, I'm proud of you for doing the best that you could. Like nobody else could say anything to me. Like this is literally flesh of my flesh. Like y'all, I'm good on y'all. And now I feel like people feel more comfortable coming to me being like, girl, I'm about to go through divorce. I'm like, girl, look, people gonna say what they gotta say. Like people gonna talk about you, you know. your family gonna talk about you. They're gonna be like, oh, and she thought she was better than everybody else, and look at her being divorced. You know, your friends are gonna be like, and you had us at a wedding, and I won't be in the next one till you know if that's the right one. And like all of these different like things. Yeah, all of these things you have to like go through and function through, losing people.
Yeah.
Because they're just not. They don't want to see you for who you are now. They want to see you for who you were when you were married and groveling and going through, you know, they want to bring up all the ways they supported you then, and now you back square footed, and it's like you think you better than us, like all of these different, like, just a mess.
When I first filed for divorce, I ended up getting into it with my mom and my sisters, and I didn't talk to them for a month. Because divorces are kind of tricky on families too, because you want your family to support you, but you also got to realize like your family created a relationship with somebody else too. Yeah, so they consider them family as well. So I felt like, dang, my sisters ain't listening. I'm trying to scream to them. I'm screaming to you, like please, I need y'all help. I need your support. I need this. I need that. And then based off how different people might look at themselves as well as like you. Like that will all play a factor into the decision on if they're gonna support you through your divorce or not. A lot of people are gonna support you through your wedding, but it's not the same amount of people that's gonna support you through your divorce, of you going back into a space to where you're reclaiming you. So yeah,
I agree.
Okay, so what helped you to move forward after the divorce?
I think it was my kid, like
Hennessy.
You know, like you know, I know all the black moms be like, my child saved my life. No, for real. I think that I woke up one day, I had been crying, just sobbing months and months and months. You know, I was virtual teaching, so I could cut off the camera when I needed a moment. But I just woke up one day, and me and my kid was the only people in the house, and he was looking at me, and I'm like, dang, you know, if he was older, he would probably be like, my mother is not like here, like she's physically here, but she's not present. Yeah. She is like not, you know, he was growing and developing, and I just was missing so many things because I was like literally grieving.
Yeah.
But like, I have another person that I have to show up for, and so once I realized that I have to do not only what's best for me, but I have another person to take care of, it just shifted my whole perspective. I was like, let me clean up this house, like let me open the blinds and let some light in. Like, let's go outside for a walk. Like, let's get some fresh air. Let's really start to think about, like, what does our life look like moving forward until, you know, I find another partner, or, you know, until different seasons change with the way me and his father are doing things with him. What can I do as a mom to show up? And I think, like, pushing myself to just go out of the house. Like, open the door and walk outside. Once I did that, it was just like, now let's go to Target. Now let's go to the museum and the park. And
not isolating.
Really getting out there and just meeting other moms and, you know, hearing other stories of other young moms. Like, it's so many. When we think about divorce, I think we think of it as like an older people's issue. I have met so many young people who are divorced that I'm just like, I would never in my mind like think like we're getting married at rates that are quicker than other people. Like, there are so many beautiful marriages in this generation, but divorce is as fast, and we don't really talk about it. So finding community and other, like, not just women, but men who are like, yeah, you know, I love her down, and it just didn't work out, and now I'm trying to move on, knowing that it just wasn't me. I was like, okay, I can do this. Like, y'all are successful, you look happy, like, I'm gonna get there one day, so let me just kind of keep pushing.
And I saw a meme that said that people need to get married and divorced in their 20s so they can really find love in their 30s. And it made me think like, dang, like the reasons that we get married now, you know, especially in your 20s, you know, once you get away from all this stuff, once you are divorced, and you can see the other side of what most people would see as like that mountain, right? So as a couple, you're climbing up the mountain, but you don't know what the top looks like. When you're married, you finally know what a piece of that top looks like. And when you divorce, you're looking around that mountain like, oh, y'all might want to be careful. Oh, I might want to kind of, you know, take care of myself, things like that. So I was actually very blessed with the pandemic happening because it gave me time to sit with myself. It gave me time to breathe. It gave me time to take off all the hats and capes and this and that I was trying to wear every day. And really just sit and be, okay, who are you? What do you love?
Yeah.
So getting back in touch with self was helpful.
Yeah, I mean, therapy was helpful.
For sure.
Yeah.
Shout out to therapists.
Yeah. Straight up. I had to learn how to play a guitar. I had to learn how to sit by water. I had to learn it was so many different lessons that I needed to learn about myself, about my anger levels, about this, about that, just from this one situation. And then you know, the black male piece of it too is like black male therapy is like, man, okay, I'm finna kick it with my boys. Man, we finna get lit. Okay, we finna do this.
I'm back in these streets.
Yeah.
Nasty.
But you know what? That is all a part of like the healing process too.
Yeah.
It's because if you, as a black man, if you're going through something traumatic, then oftentimes we didn't grow up on therapy. Like we didn't grow up on, oh, okay, well, I'm stressed about this, so let me do this other thing. We grew up on like what I would kind of tell my therapist is like nigga therapy to it. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go play sports. I'm gonna go talk about this. I'm gonna go, all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I realized that I had to dive into both of those things. And then really see what parts that I wanted to kind of keep for myself and what parts I wanted to kind of be like, okay, this is that life too.
Yeah.
So,
marriage in your early 20s is hard because technically that's like the phase where you have no idea who you are. Like you're navigating so many different things and trying to then be with somebody who is also navigating those things. It's like you wake up one day and you just like, wow, like there are so many things that I wish I could had the time to do or things that I'm interested in now. And like, it takes a very particular type of 20-year-old to support you through that. In our 20s, we're selfish. Your 20s are your selfish years. So wake up and have a partner that's going to be like, okay, you want to learn art. Like, okay, I'm going to get the canvases. I'm going to get the paint. That I think there's a certain level of like intentionality that most 20-year-olds don't have. Like in my early 20s, I was mad selfish. Like if it didn't suit me, I don't really care how it impacts anyone else. And so I took some of those pieces of me into a marriage, and then my partner was the same way. Like he was a 20-year-old young guy, you know, he still wanted to have time with his friends and things like that. And now, boom, he's a husband. Boom, he's a father. And then it was times when he wanted to do different things, and I just didn't understand it because I'm like, you're supposed to be at home with us. But I don't think we really talk about the fact that, a lot of these people around us are older and married, but they're not good examples of marriage. And y'all are mentoring us and doing these different things. I think walking our journey, we saw one good example of marriage, and it was his second wife that he had a great marriage with. Like his first wife, he talks about just as like shambles. That's the mother of all his children. He was like, we were young, you know, we knew each other in our teenage years, so we just assumed we were supposed to move forward. He got remarried in like his 50s, and they like travel the world together. They always on a trip in Dubai.
Look, ladies, they say if you're gonna be a wife, you should be the second one.
So just thinking about like, all of these people are giving you advice on how to like be a part of a marriage, but is that really being surrounded by not people that are married? Like it's a lot of people that are married, but really being surrounded by people who are married and happy. And I think I'm pretty sure we're gonna talk about dating now, but so I'll just save my thoughts for that.
Yeah. So let's go ahead. So how long did it take you guys to become comfortable dating again? Like people I know are sure like, I don't know if I should start or like what that's gonna look like.
What? When I thought about that question, I was like, man, immediately. But then I had to think of the word comfortable. And comfortable is a very, after you go through a divorce, comfortable is like a spectrum, right?
Yeah.
So you don't just start off with like, okay, I'm now free. Okay, I can mess with anybody I want to. You might feel physically comfortable, but emotionally you might be closed. Emotionally, I was very closed for like a year and a half, 2 years, for real. To where I just didn't want nobody really to get close to me in that way. Now I'm just starting to kind of open back up and things like that, but I had to really take my time to kind of restore myself. Yeah. So comfortable, I think that's the spectrum, but maybe like a year and a half. I always say that like however long that you were together, half of that time, like whenever y'all split, half of that time is gonna be spent healing. So if you was together for 5 years, you're gonna be healing for 2.5 years. You get what I'm saying? So I think that that spectrum is kind of big when it comes to comfortability.
It took me maybe like 8 months to go on a date. I really didn't enjoy the experience. I think we just have a culture where we are expecting like people who have children together to always be at each other's throats. I don't know if that's because what we see on TV or like, you know, I hate my baby daddy. And I'm like, that's just not our journey. Like we chill, like assumption that like when you co-parent you have to hate each other's guts, and I'm just like, we hated each other when we was married. Like let's go into let's do something different. Like, let's actually like each other as people. I wouldn't say friends. That's a push. Like are we friends? No. Are we cordial and healthy co-parents? Yes. And so a lot of the questions were like, well, I don't feel comfortable with him calling you. Well, like, we have a child.
Yeah, and
like,
I think that's
you think this man is not going to communicate
childish.
with me at all, and like he's picking up and dropping off my child. And then another thing is that I just really feel like when you evolve through certain things, there are certain things you're just not going to do again. And a lot of the dating like realm that I was in, I was like, oh, this is taking me back to the old.
Yeah, look,
I'm not trying to be that person anymore. So really just having to like stay in my boundaries and just be like, this was cool, but I don't think we should like continue this, because in my mind I'm always thinking about like what type of bonus father would I want to be around my son, and like a lot of these men just are not it
at all.
because one, they haven't been fathered, and that's just like the reality of life. Like a lot of women haven't been mothers, so they don't really have an example of what it means to be like a man of empathy and understanding and like communication and things like that. And so I don't want my son to grow up and have to unlearn things. Like I want him from the beginning to the end to be around somebody that's like, communicate your feelings, it's okay to cry, like different things like that. And my like radar is a lot stronger now that I'm just like, yeah, no, like you homophobic, you weird, like you don't express your own emotions. You know, every time I go on a date, I'm like, so when was the last time you cried? Oh, 10 years ago. Oh, okay. Well, this was fun. Thanks so much. Like, it's not for me. Like, you know, how do you feel about, you know, pop culture? How do you feel about D-Wade's daughter? And people like,
because baby, that is one of my deal breaker questions.
I will. So I haven't cried in the last and I tell people this all the time. Like I haven't cried in the last maybe 10, 12 years. However, like I've painted my damn soul out. So like that is my outlet. Yeah. Okay. So because in some households, black boys they can't cry.
So they condition themselves.
When you become an adult, think about the point you got to be at to actually cry as a black man. You got to be extremely happy on your happiest day, your wedding, your this, your that, or you got to be extremely sad. Your mama died. Yeah. Anything in between, you might want to kind of suck your emotions up, especially in Chicago. Yeah. Because I mean. The world does not have a lot of sympathy for Chicago black men, you know, and you don't really get time as you crying. Nobody's really gonna pat you on your back and say, "Oh man," you know. I think that black women have a beautiful support system when it comes to like, you know, when you all need help and need resources and even need somebody to hug you while you're crying.
Emotional vulnerability.
Y'all, you can get that from anywhere. Meanwhile, it's I know friends of mine that haven't been hugged while they was crying in years. Especially by another male. So it's just a different perspective on it. That's all I want to offer.
But I do think you hit on a really good point as far as like people respecting what a good co-parenting relationship looks like, because I grew up with watching my dad co-parent with my sister's father, and I was like, if I date a man with kids, I want nothing less than that, because my sister's mom has always looked at me and my brother like we're her own kids. Like anytime we wanted to come to her house or like come visit my nephew or whatever, the door was always open. Like, and so I was like, now as an adult, it's like I don't necessarily exclude men with kids. I have rules around it. But like, and one of those guidelines is that like, bro, what is that relationship like? Because I don't want to be in no messy, I hate her, he hates her, like, or like, we were supposed to go out on a date, but she mad, so she ain't come get the baby. So now, like, I don't want to deal with none of that. So if the relationship ain't on the up and up, and y'all ain't working towards it being on the up and up, keep me out of it.
How do you I got a good question for you there. Let's say you're on a date with a guy and he tells you he's divorced. What are you thinking? Because I've been through that so much to where it's our first date. Oh yeah, what was your last relationship? Now I have to tell you that I'm divorced. Or I don't have to tell you nothing, but most likely I'm going to tell you the actual truth. Now, what people do with that truth is whatever they do, but that can cause a date to go from really well to like, well, what's wrong with you? What did you do?
I think me personally, I'm going to look at it as like any other breakup. I'm still going to ask the same questions as far as like, what did you learn from it? How do you feel like it affected you? You know what I mean? I may get a little deeper because again, I got this therapist brain, and knowing what it has to take to want to marry somebody and making that such a big step. Like I'm just gonna ask questions out of curiosity. But I do think that like it shouldn't be something that's necessarily. If anything, I say this: I have more concern for a man who's like touching 40, or like getting older. You know, in the event that I go that old. and he ain't got no kids or he ain't never been married, then I'm like, you scared of commitment? What's going on? I feel like at least divorce speaks to the fact that like you're willing to commit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that you want marriage, unless, and that'll be my next question is like, so are you open to getting married again? Because if you like, hell no, that shit was the worst thing that ever happened to me. Because I've met a guy who's like proposed and the proposal didn't work out or whatever, and he went all out, and you know he was still very like it was salt in the wound from that shit not working out. He was like, I'd never do that again. I'm like, let me grab my things and get on up out of here. I'm gonna go ahead and head out. Like,
I think some of my most healthy like relationships and like getting comfortable with dating again was like finding people that was like, are you divorced or what? Like, oh, you divorced? Like, you went through this? Let me hear all about it without like just the parts I don't like. I'm gone on. Yeah, you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Let me actually stay in. Like, what did you go through? Yeah. Why do you feel this way? All these different things that really helped restore me. So that was one of the things too. So shout out to a very special friend that really served a good spot in terms of like, we were talking, but she was like, dude, you can talk about your past as much as you want to, and you have a safe space to not
because it affects you.
Yeah.
Because you look at people sideways from that day forth. Like
there was times to where we would spend the whole night talking about my divorce, and she would really just kind of put her stuff to the side and just be like, I see that you're hurting as a human. Yeah, talk about it.
And I think when you date somebody somewhat soon after that, or you know that like maybe you're the first person that they've taken seriously since going through that, the mature piece of you has to leave room and space open for those discussions to happen, because I can't sit here and ignore, like I was talking to a guy once who he probably had been out of that relationship for like maybe a year and a half. He was with somebody for 8 years, like got engaged, it didn't work out, and he would reference it a lot, but I think, and at first it bothered me, but I had to like check myself and know that this is really this man's only frame of reference when it comes to a relationship. So while I can say dudes I mess with, my exes, you know, I have more of a whole group of a spectrum to pull from, whereas he's gonna say, well, with me and my ex, because that's who he spent the last 8 years with. Like, so I think you have to be aware of those things and know, like, I have to leave room for this person to be able to speak in that context, because this is all that they've known for a while, you know.
And that's a way to get a divorced person heart right there, because you able to show them that immediately you are able to kind of put yourself to the side and use your ears, opposed to just like your will or your mouth or your whatever you kind of want to do with this
take
situation.
your ego out and leave the space so we can hear.
When you able to be empathetic, then that really opens people up to where it's like, oh wow, you actually are understanding. You and I have had conversations to where, you know, it's a lot of people that hear you divorce and just be like, oh well, it had to be this or it had to be that. You had to be doing it. You had to be doing that. But the person that's empathetic, they gonna get the real story. They actually gonna get like, oh wow, you're this type of human being. Oh wow, this is what's going on.
Yeah. Okay, so pieces of advice for people considering divorce.
Do it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I really think for me it's just really not asking other people's opinions. Like that was a big thing to me. I think asking other people's opinions keep you sometimes in situations longer than you are supposed to.
Being able to validate what's already in
really
your gut.
Feeling like, what do you want to do? And even like, if you, once you get a divorce, dating somebody else, like everybody is going to have an opinion. Oh, you moving on too fast. Oh, why you haven't dated? It's been 3 years. Either you're going too fast, you're going too slow. This not the person they like. This person got the same name as your ex. Like everybody's always going to have an opinion. And really you have to sit with like, if I get this divorce, how am I going to feel when it's over? If I move on to this new person, how am I going to feel? What are the things I'm looking for? Also, just working on yourself first prior to even being married. And I think a lot of people assume, like, okay, I got this ring or I'm about to propose, and, like, this person is going to be forced to put up with my crap. And I think that's what we're used to just as a society. Like, we think that engagement rings and weddings and babies create like a dumping ground for you, that this person is supposed to take all your messy boots, and then when you are over evolved and they literally are burned out from supporting you through nonsense, then the relationship is supposed to somehow be able to move forward versus two here. I don't know, it was a movie, I don't know if it was something on Instagram, but it was like a marriage is not 50-50, it's two people giving 100%. And we've been taught, especially I can speak to us as black women, we've been taught to take everybody's crap. Literally, like, oh, that man got 6 kids, he abused his other baby mama, like, you're supposed to support him through that. You're supposed to
see his
look
potential,
past his past, and see who he could be. And it's like, no, like let's let that struggle love go. Like, if this person, I want us to just be more comfortable as young people being like, you have great qualities, but you don't have the qualities I'm looking for. And that doesn't mean you're not a great person, but you're just not the person for me. And so when you're thinking about a divorce, this person could be a great chef. Yeah. They could be handy around the house. But are those the things that you're looking for? And I think that's what I'm struggling about in dating now is like, I meet all of these amazing men, but they don't know how to do the one thing I'm asking. Have empathy. Like, speak to me well. Like, watch your mouth. You're not gonna talk to me like I'm somebody off the street. Like, you get up saying, you like, nigga, what's up? And like, cause I'm gonna be aggressive, and then I'll be like, but I want a feminine woman. How? Yeah. How you bugging up on me, but you want femininity? So, and my ex had so many amazing qualities. Like, the man could cook down, like, could literally build us a house from scratch, like, all of these different things. But when I really sat down with myself contemplating a divorce, I was like, but is him cooking and him being handy what is going to get us to 50 years? Or is it that I feel like we can communicate with one another? I feel like we enjoy each other's company. Like, those pieces were missing. And so everybody else had a different opinion of him because they saw him in one regard. I saw him behind closed doors. So they're like, you should keep giving it a try. You should go to counseling. You should do all of these things. I'm like, I get the real raw him. And
I know who he is at his core.
Yeah, and it's like, that is not who is for me. And I'm pretty sure he would say the same about me. He told me the other day, like, you a whole different person. You so much more evolved. Like, I actually like you as a person now. And I'm like, that's good. Because I know in the past, I was young. I was, figuring out who I was, and I wasn't the best. And so the fact that he was like, you're great. You're a great mom. But you're not a good wife to me. We need to go our separate ways. I think it's something that we really have to think about. And then think about if this person never changes, like, literally. Because that's the thing. We like, oh, in a year, they may be this person. Or in 2 years, they may be this person. Literally, the person you married is the person that's in front of you today, March, whatever day it is, 19th, 2022. If they wake up the same person next March 2023, would you be able to deal with it? And if not, like, you cannot expect someone to change. They can only change for themselves. We put so much energy and effort to wait it out. I'm going to wait it out. I'm going to see if this person is different. The reality is they may never change. Yeah. So do you want to do you want to invest this much more time in them knowing that they may actually stay the same? And if not, you have to go. If you are like, yes, okay, I can put up with all of this stuff, even if this person never changes, this is the person for me, then you have a place that you can start from. But when you're looking at somebody and you like, if you don't change, this is it, then you know that this might just be it, because they're more than likely not going to change.
Yeah. And I've done a thread on Twitter around, like, things that I've learned from working with couples. And one thing that I often see as black women is, like, let's say you got, like, you picking partners based off, like, your traumatic passes. So let's say in the past you done been cheated on, but now you find a man who love you down, he loyal, will do anything for you, love your dirty draws, never look at another woman. But baby, he's not financially where he needs to be, or he doesn't know how to lead, and so you have to make a lot of the decisions or do a lot of the emotional or physical labor around certain stuff, right? And so we're highlighting this one piece that we've been missing all this time, this undying loyalty and all of this other stuff. You just kind of like, oh, well, I deal with it, or you feel like it's going to change once that marriage is there, and baby, that shit don't change. It doesn't change. And you hit the nail on the head as far as, like, I tell clients, you have to ask yourself, can you deal with this for the rest of your life? If the answer is no, like, I understand wanting to give it some time. I usually tell women, give yourself a mental note. You doing all this talking to them, maybe y'all doing couples therapy or whatever. Put a time on it and be ready to stick to that time. If I don't see certain changes in the next 6 months, in the next year, baby, be prepared to pack them bags, okay? Because it's not going to, it's just a sense of kind of false hope. Like, one day this person will wake up and do all this shit I've been asking. But it's like, no, if it wasn't in them beforehand, it's likely not going to develop, because the older we get, the more stuck in our ways we're becoming, you know. So if somebody isn't doing things where they're actively changing, and they're changing for them, not just changing for you, because people would think like, well, he knows like our relationship is banking on this. But that may not be a value to him. You know what I mean? He may want to save the relationship, but it may not. It's not, if it's not important enough for you as a person.
Yeah.
The relationship isn't going to shift that behavior.
Yeah, I agree.
Pieces of advice. That's what we were talking about. Pieces of advice for people considering divorce.
I think that the first piece of advice is like, you gotta love you, like in a relationship, in a marriage, in anything, in a divorce. You really got to sit down and kind of figure out who you are and learn and love who you are. Because if you consider in divorce, you probably divorcing away parts of your partner that you don't like about yourself as well.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like that she bring this out of me. I don't like that I act like this. I don't like that when we get into it, we doing this or we doing that. When you really got to become more solid and just like how much you love yourself and when you love yourself and what that process looks like, because that process is something that's going to happen no matter if you're married, no matter if you, well, should happen no matter if you're married, no matter if you're divorced. So if you're thinking about it, you know, that's where I would start first. It's like, okay, is this because of something that you don't love about yourself? You know, and then your relationship gonna kind of get the brunt end of that. Hey, I don't like this about me, so I want to change this so that I can change this. Or, you know, do you do that work internally and then fix things externally? Yeah. So if you love yourself 100,000% and you feel like, man, I need to be divorced, do your thing. Yeah. But if you love yourself 20% and you feel like, I just need to be divorced, you know what I mean? You want to look at the reasons, A, why, and B, you want to, I don't know, set up necessary things to where you can love yourself a little bit more. Because even when you get divorced, you're going to be the only person that's loving you for a little minute. Yeah. You're going to be the only person that, and besides family members and friends and stuff like that, but you're going to be the only person that is going to be in touch with your feelings. Once you married and stuff like that, you're talking to somebody 8 times a day about however you feel about everything. I was at the gas station. I was at Family Dollar. I was at, Now, that time reduces to one time. And that's that one time you're having like that conversation with yourself or loving on yourself. So I think that part is like super important. Because like some people, they like rush the gun into like a divorce and they're not like emotionally ready. So then they go for divorce and then they go right back into the same situation that they was in. Because it's just something about this person, or, you know, they just not practicing that self-love enough. To where it's like, this ain't good for me. I need to stay away from it. And I don't care how I feel about it. I don't care, you know what I mean? All these different things. I need to know what's best for me. But that comes out of a love for yourself.
Ooh, what do y'all think about? I'm holding y'all. I'm sorry. This is my guy. 2 more. What do y'all think about people who got divorced earlier in life and then who later get back together maybe years later?
I don't have a problem with it because I think you grow and you change, and I think like divorce has a lot to do with the timing and season that you're in as a person. Yeah. And I will say, like, divorce is not going to solve your problems. Like, you are going to be the same person you were married and the same person you were divorced. Like, unless you are doing something different when you're divorced now, you're just going to be that version of yourself with a new partner. And I think people are like, oh, I got divorced because that wasn't the one for me. And then you always see people who are like, I'm on my 4th marriage. Yeah, because you've never changed. Like, you've changed partners. Yeah. But you've never changed. And so a lot of the people who get remarried, they're a lot older now. And, you know, they really sat down and they were like, okay, that was the person that I really did love, but I don't think I showed up as my best self in that season. And so if I'm my best self now and they're their best self, like, we know we can definitely function. Yeah. I think it's different when you were married and you know that there was no love in it. Yeah. You know, you got married for different reasons. Yeah. Somebody's about to get deported or, you know, different things like that. Yeah. Then it's like, okay, I didn't really love this person.
But I think when you loved them at the like, core and that timing and that shit was just off, or like, again, you weren't your fullest selves, it can definitely... I think you can spin the block later on.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
I wouldn't do it, but
because I can tell the child are like hopeless romantics and everything like that.
Pieces of that.
Look like
y'all love, and you know what I mean. Love even more for love to kind of come back together and find its way back home.
Yeah, but I think significant time. I'm not saying like maybe like a year or so, baby. I'm like talking about the people who was apart for a decade or so. Like.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, it's very situational. I wouldn't advise kind of that because it's like I think there's a Seinfeld skit to where he's like, you know, it's kind of like a magician showing another magician a trick. And you know the trick already. So it don't matter how much time passed. I know how you're going to pull this rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah.
If that's the case. Now, some people do change and grow with time. But
Most people don't.
They bury.
Let's just be for real.
They bury.
Yeah.
And then you mess around and come back around 10, 20 years later. And they seem all good. And then you hit that one nerve to where all that stuff that they buried just flush out.
Yeah.
And that is sometimes worse than just kind of taking your losses and kind of cutting your, okay, this was cool. But
Look, imagine getting back together 20 years later and then the motherfucker want to bring up something that you did
20 years ago.
20 years ago.
You mad.
Like, now you like, okay, now I see why we can't be I see why we can't be together because, like, why we supposed to be on a whole new era, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so last thing, because it's such a hot topic, Kim and Kanye, the most public crazy divorce going on right now. What are some just very brief opinions on what's going on, who you feel for, what you think needs to happen?
I never thought I would say this publicly, but I am Team Kim. Not because she's a woman, but because I think that she has evolved in a different way. As a mother, I know kids bring different things out of you.
Yeah.
And they make you look at life differently. And I think when you're used to somebody being single and fun and, you know, they had the experiences where they had no kids and he was styling her. And that's a different Kim.
Yeah.
Now she's Kim as a mom, Kim who's trying to become a lawyer, Kim who is a businesswoman, like all of these different things. And I don't think they are seeing eye to eye when it comes to the ways that they want to do things, not only themselves, but with their children. And I think, like, my biggest lesson is that, like, marriage is not possession. Like, we think we marry people, and yes, it's a contract by the federal government that y'all belong together. But at the same time, like, that person is autonomous in their own right and regard. And when you're watching someone literally, like, police everything another person is doing, you know that may have been going on behind closed doors, and this is the first time it's coming to the public. So for Kanye to be doing all this, I believe that those pieces of him have exhibited themselves in private. Yeah. I love that Kim has not exposed her husband. Like, she has not really
She has been very
respectful. She has not really said much about him. And I think she has that sense of covering over him because that's the father of her children. Like, you would never want your kids to get older and see you slandering their father on the internet in the same way as that he's doing it to you. And so I think that Kanye just needs to understand, like, as a woman, she is gone. Like, there is nothing you can do.
And I feel like she tried. I feel like she really, when we think about how long Kim and Kanye been together, I feel like she's really stuck with him through all his antics, through all his Trump stuff. Like, I feel like for a while, you've seen her support him in
and
those
be quiet
ways,
about
and be quiet
it.
about it.
She wasn't doing interviews like, this is why I chose to support. Very quiet, very classy with it, but everybody gets to a breaking point, and I think Miss Mamas is just her breaking point because she has to raise 4 small children. Like, literally, like, girl, and running businesses and trying to become like, she has her own kind of jam, and I just, you know, I wouldn't say Pete Davidson is like the one. Like, let's be serious, but I do hope that she finds someone who really, like, loves her down and loves her children.
The openness of, like, that after, like, being married,
like, her dating him.
Yeah, and, like, you know, he saying text messages, I'm laid up with your wife.
Yeah,
right
stepping
now.
in.
I mean, he's a comedian. Let's be for real. Like, let's start there. But also, like, Kanye West been exposed to her. Like, I didn't even know she was dating Pete Davidson until Kanye West was like, hey, you with that lame, corny. And Kanye, you out here with other women that look like her, dress like her with a mask on, doing all this. Like, you want her back, but you with other women. Like, it's
I feel like he went public first, so he made it fair game almost.
But I also feel like they are literally like, they are the, like, pop culture influences life so much. And so when we're thinking about who we're taking our cues from, like I said, there are people around that are married and in relationships, but are they what you want to emulate? Like, it is not okay for either one of them to be legally married and openly dating other people.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Wait until y'all get a divorce and do y'all thing, but y'all are still legally married. Getting a divorce does not mean single.
Yeah,
it means
and that's like
getting a divorce.
Kim trying to do the whole like single documentation. That
like, baby, you're not single. You aren't legally married to this man. Go and get all y'all papers together and let the judge sign a dotted line, and then do what you're doing. But imagine like how many other people are out here are like, well, I want a divorce, I'm gonna move out tomorrow, and then boom, you see him a week later on a date with somebody else, and you like, you still married. Like, I just saw your wife in Target, she still got her ring on. Y'all supposed to be working through things, and you done moved on, and she's still like acting as if she's married, and like the harm in that, like divorce and call it a day.
I've been there. The only thing I would say is that like Kanye's antics like kind of show like the untalked about side for black men on like what happens when like you lose somebody who you love, especially if you lose a wife. To where like Kanye is his mother passing kind of drove him crazy, but I feel like this is really.
I feel like he's very emotionally dysregulated, and it's just coming out.
But he also lacks accountability. Like, you're getting a divorce because of your actions. Like, look.
Yeah, I mean, like, I just want to speak from the feelings point of. I don't really choose to take sides because divorce is a messy ass like place to be in, and on whatever side you on, you're gonna get dirt on your shoes. So I try not to take sides, but I'm just looking at his actions, and I really can understand the fury of certain things, like the fury of saying like the new nigga, like. A lot of guys, they gon' oh man, it's all good. You know what I mean? I'm Future in the worst day video. If I see him with another dude, I'm just gonna drop the bell and walk off. Yeah. You know, I'm gonna play it cool. And I think that you are seeing like some raw emotion behind like him losing.
I feel like he feels really out of control, and so he's doing different things to try to regain whatever control he feels like he has in those dynamics. Yeah,
but just like the hurt of that, like no other woman has been close to him like Kim Kardashian has since post his mother passing. Yeah. So this is like his main source of just like love and kind of like authentic inspiration, if you want to kind of call it that, between them two. So I think that that's kind of like that contributes to why he's doing some of the stuff that he's doing. Now, is the stuff right? No. However, I can see why certain things, because people don't understand how hard divorce is. And on certain people that's already close to that breaking point, a divorce really pushing. Because if you on your best sane day and you get a divorce, it's going to really make your next 3 months feel gloomy as hell. Yeah. So I can only imagine how his life, with all the money, with all of this, with all of that, this hurt about losing a relationship. That just shows how strongly you felt about it. And it just shows like you're gonna need some extra help with this besides like Instagram, Twitter. Which is what most people run to.
I want him to get some community.
So like where his people
like he needs some people.
His PR, like what, like
everybody's just kind of letting him self-destruct in front of the world
and in front of his kids. You know what? Like he has a child that is old enough to see what's going on.
I think it's a bad thing if he doesn't come back in a year or so or whatever and reflect on that and acknowledge like, man, I was really going through it and my shit was pouring out in the worst ways that it could probably pour out, and I acknowledge that, you know.
Yeah, but that's normal Kanye stuff. To where like, I mean, he gonna act the fool, but then he gonna kind of revert back to a point. Not to say that it's okay again, because I'm not choosing sides. I'm just understanding and being empathetic of just like, bro, you from Chicago. You don't want your girl taken by nobody. You feel me? From a Chicago to a Chicago. Sorry if I said that.
No, I just think like about it. For me, it's just the babies. Like, to be honest, when you have a child that's old enough to understand what's going on, like Northwest is the big kid. Like, she is watching all of this play out on social media. She goes to school with other kids. Like, your father is the hot topic, and he's the hot topic for consistently getting on the internet and disrespecting your mother.
But I haven't seen too much disrespect of her to where you calling out her name, everything like that. You putting a business out there, but y'all both kind of doing that. And, you know, with his whole, like, episodes and everything like that, and her trying to get him, like, hey, you need to take your medicine, you need to take your meds, you need to take your meds. Does. Now that he's not taking them joints, she's going to look like one of the biggest enemies.
With a microscope up to what their daughter's doing. She can't have a TikTok, this is corrupting my daughter. She's a kid with TikTok, like, they having fun, they doing what they doing. Like, if it's between you and Kim, cool. But when you start bringing your child into it, then it's like open season. Anybody can comment on how y'all are choosing to raise y'all child. Everybody has an opinion of your daughter's social media. Like, there's a certain covering.
Why do you think that I'm sorry to cut you off. Why do you think he took it to, like, that extreme? Because I'm thinking, like, niggas be escalating.
I think
But
that when you're
to
with
escalate
somebody,
all the way there, what do you think is kind of?
I think when you are
proper in that
with
situation?
somebody, I'm gonna speak from experience. When you are with somebody who is a narcissistic abuser, they thrive off control.
Yeah.
And so now that he can't control Kim Kardashian, the next thing that he can control is their children.
Yeah.
And not so much the little ones because they don't have
Because
that
you
much
never hear him
language.
bring up
Like,
the little ones.
they're
Yeah.
tiny, they're little. But Northwest she's had her own personality since she was a kid. Like, she like JoJo Siwa wanted to do her ponytails and her bows and different things like that. She's always had her little niche. And they used to nurture that together. You know, like, let's take her. Yeah, let's let her do her song. She was performing at the Sunday service and all of these things. So when he had control over that situation, because he had control over Kim, he was cool beans. Now that Kim is, he doesn't have control of that, because essentially what happens in Kim's home with North is what happens in her home. Yeah. Now he's like, and she can't do TikTok. If she was doing TikTok at his house, I don't think it would be an issue. The issue is that I can't control your mother and what she does in her home, but I can control and comment on what you do in her home because you're our child. Yeah. Like, I don't have any control over her as a grown woman because I'm not her father and I'm not about to be a husband. But I'm your dad, and I'm going to consistently comment on everything that is done because he desires control, and I think that type of control can go dark real quick, and that's when people murder their wives and all types of things and their kids.
That is any way based in just like he wants safety for his children based off kind of what he.
But how is she unsafe?
Sees, I mean,
making the TikTok video where she a punk rock, got the little filter on and singing.
Well, we both in education, so we both know how social media for kids can really shift and change.
I just personally think it goes.
I'm just asking questions.
No, I think I personally think it goes back to what she was saying as far as if he was still in the picture, this wouldn't even be a topic of conversation.
Northwest has had a TikTok since she was like 6.
Yeah.
And he was in her TikToks, like living it up, having fun. She had his Sunday service.
That's what I don't like about it.
You're not worried about your daughter performing in front of millions of people at a Sunday service. But you're worried about your daughter making a 7-second TikTok video.
That's still monitored by an adult.
That's literally, like, you cannot put anything in the
his biggest problem with that was like the makeup behind it and all that stuff like that. And
if you watch the Kardashians, Northwest has worn makeup her whole life. Like, literally wears her auntie's makeup, does her auntie's makeup. It's been episodes where they in the house and she putting on lip kits from Kylie. Like, she's doing exactly the same thing she was doing when he was around. I think it's that he feels like, I cannot control your mother, so I am going to control you. And in those situations, like, if he does not get the support he needs, like, that could go very dark, very, very fast. That, I can't control them. I have no, like, connection to them anymore. So the way that usually situations like that play out is like, I'm going to exert my control in very violent ways toward the mother and the children. And I hope that, like we said, like, I just don't know who is in his corner. Like, because really some people from Chicago going to be like, sit your ass down. Like, like, you tweaking. Like, relax.
I don't know about that because, I mean, we have, like, battles over kids all the time. You get what I'm saying? Especially in the black community. We used to this. Like, we used to, I'm going at you, you going at me about these
But
kids.
I also feel like
I think that Kanye is more used to it than she is.
I think it's
I
just,
think that,
it all thrives out of a place. In all situations, when it comes to kids, it's all about control. Like, it's a control tactic.
You can't control the adult, you want to control the kids, and like,
he got to find something else, you know.
Yeah, because she's gonna grow up, and she, like I said, she's the child that's old enough to remember all of this. So, like, regardless of who you are next year, regardless of who you evolve to be, like, you're gonna have to apologize to your daughter, and mending that relationship between father and daughter, especially when her life has already played out on a public platform by other people, it's different when your own parent is the one that's attacking you in a public environment. Like, the wound of a child, to experience that, I would be blue as a daughter. I'd be like, I ain't got nothing to say to this man. Like, why is he singling me out when my cousins are doing it? You know, I used to do this with him when I was small, and now it's a problem. Like, to have to reconcile with his child, that's a whole different type of, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
Because I know some of my friends who their parents said one thing to them on Facebook 20 years ago, and they ain't never got over it. Like, and they still carrying that wound, and they 30.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I just think that you can see between them, you can see a public, like, complexity of what a divorce could really look like on its worst day.
Yeah.
Like to where like anything can go wrong. Y'all could be arguing about this or that. Y'all could be blocking each other. Next second, y'all could be talking about each other on social media. Next minute, y'all could be talking to friends and you know what I mean, making up all type of
And
stuff.
it's just
Next
always
minute,
on the internet.
Yeah. So I think
Always.
that's why, you know, I kind of
Divorce
through that.
requires a certain level of privacy, and I just don't think with them being who they are,
And
they're
maturity.
gonna get it.
Yeah,
They're just not gonna
Yeah.
get that level of privacy to really like be messy with no cameras and no shade room and no this and this. Like
They gotta wait.
we
till
gotta
the
watch
show
it
comes.
all, y'all. We watching their whole life.
But that's the unfortunate thing about the divorce is that once that process gets started, you
Everybody
gotta-
knows.
Man, man. Okay.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys for coming and being a part of this, sharing some insight. I hope you guys enjoyed. We will catch you next time, okay?